The following program contains the opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Yes, coming to you cordless, everybody. It's Thursday night, May 22nd, 2025. I'm Jim Peters. Welcome to another edition of Jim Peters Tonight. This is episode number 232, if you're keeping score at home. And yeah, it took us 200 episodes to get our shit together here. And we're not quite there. Now, here's the thing. We're started 2 minutes late today. I'm sorry. But Tim Conaway is our guest tonight, and he signed in. We ask our guests to sign in around 5 to 9 Eastern so we can check their camera and microphone, and almost inevitably the problems with the microphone. Most people are still on Windows computers, and Windows, they basically fix the microphone, the sound input on it's like fixing the airplane while you're flying it. You think the video would be hard. The video is easy. Plug the camera in and it works. They got that. But the sounds always, 80% of the time when we have trouble connecting with the guests, it's the sound. It's not Tim's fault, and it's not your fault. It's not anybody's fault except the damn people in Microsoft. But whatever. I still remember I used to be a studio musician, and one of my hallmarks as a musician was I knew the technology. So, I made a pretty good living in Los Angeles in the 1980s programming synthesizers for rock bands, because these guys didn't know anything, and we were dealing at that time with what was called frequency modulation synthesis, and nobody understood that either. And I would be called in before recording sessions to program the synthesizers. And why did I bring that up? Because I brought that up because in 1989, I think it was, I was working on Windows 2. Now, you all remember Windows 3, or maybe you don't, but that was basically the start of, for non-Apple computers, it was the start of the graphical user interface. But Windows 2 was a thing, and I worked on it, and it was ugly. Any rate, yeah, okay. So Tim Conaway is our guest. He's a former executive editor of Hustler magazine. He's our old friend. We love talking to him. Going to shoot the shit about, and yeah, I'm trying not to swear on the show, but I came to the realization that it's not that I can't do it. It doesn't sound real if I don't. That's the way I talk. You're not going to say shoot the crap. Nobody knows that. Everyone knows shoot the shit. That's the has a nice alliteration to it, and that's the phrase. So that's what I'm using, because we don't have to appeal to the FCC here. We have to do that. We're not on the radio, So anyway, and we got some stuff we're going to talk to Tim about. So it's Memorial Day weekend. Or it's going to be starting tomorrow anyway. Monday we're taking off. Now, I've been announcing this for like a week now, but I'm going to announce it again. We're taking Monday off, but for the first time ever, we're going to be running a rerun on Monday. Now, and this is going to set a precedent. We are always now, Monday through Thursday, we're either going to have a live show or we're going to run a rerun, one or the other, because we finally figure out how to program this stuff, so we can do it ahead of time. So yeah, and matter of fact, I think I said last night, the night before, I thought maybe we'd run Robert Tannenbaum's interview from a couple of weeks ago, but no, I think we're going to run, because it's Memorial Day, we're going to run Ryan McDermott, who was on, I can't remember, Monday or I can't remember. Anyway, just recently, he's been on the last week, 10 days, and he is an Iraqi war vet, and he wrote his book it's largely about fighting in the Iraqi war. It's called, what is it called, Jim? Can you remember? No, I can't. It's called Downriver. That's what it's called. A memoir of a warrior poet. poet. I remembered. Damn, Christ, takes a second. Yeah, Downriver. That's his show. And if you want a link to that, we have a link in our blog to his episode and also to buy the book on Amazon too. But I think we're going to run him on Monday. We're also going to take next Wednesday off. Tuesday, we got Jonathan Lockwood, military historian, is going to be coming by. Second appearance on the show. He's going to be a regular. He's going to talk to us about world military and diplomatic affairs. And so, and we're having him on specifically to talk about the Israeli Hamas conflict and also India Pakistan, because as I've said, if you're going to see nuclear bombs on the planet, that's probably the first place they'll show up. Those two countries hate each other's guts, and they both have nuclear weapons, and they're right next to each other. And that almost happened here until Trump actually. This happened after we booked Lockwood for Tuesday. Trump has, at least for the time being, seems to have negotiated a ceasefire. We'll see how long that lasts, and hopefully it does. Because seriously, it probably won't affect us here in the United States. Even some damn radiation cloud won't get that far here. But man, that it's like there have only been legitimate uses of nuclear weapons twice on the planet, and that was in August of 1945 to end the Second World War. So at any rate, Lockwood's coming on Tuesday. We're taking Wednesday off. Thursday, our old friend Larry Newman will be here. Bigfoot investigator, bail bondsman extraordinaire. He's chased around the country, catching people that skip bail, and he's chased around the country chasing Bigfoot. And he is. That's what he does. So yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna save this for Tim. I was gonna say something. I'll ask him about it. So we're taking calls tonight. We're taking calls as Tim is on live. We're taking calls as it happens. So if you want to ask Tim a question, yeah, Tim and I'm gonna ask him that too. We'll save that too. 325 call Jim 325-225-5546 is the phone number to call. You can call in and talk to Tim. He'd like that, I'm sure he would, because we finally got his microphone fixed. Now we're going to see what's on the front page of Conk News right now in real time, and then we'll be back with Tim Conaway. Stay tuned. Hi, all. I want to talk to you about Conk News. You've probably heard me talk about this before, but if you're a news junkie, you should try this out. Conk News is a news aggregator. Now, there are plenty of news aggregators on the web, but Conk News is different than all the rest, and here's how. Most other news aggregators will lump the top stories from each news source under that news source. The top 10 stories, like, for example, from Fox News, Breitbart, the New York Post, etc. What Conk News does is it sends its servers out onto the web to over 75 different news sources every 3 hours. And yes, this is an automated process, but in this case, that's actually a good thing. And collects the latest stories from said 75 sources and then lays them out on its own front page in the order they were posted, regardless of the source. So you see the latest stories at the top of the front page, regardless of where they're from. And this is all free to you. You don't need to log in. You don't need to subscribe, register, nothing. It's completely free. All you have to do is go to conk.com to check it out. That's conk.com, 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 Conk News. Joining us from his home in the northern suburbs of Minneapolis, Minnesota, Tim Conaway, who's reading the Maple Grove newspaper. It actually says Maple Grove there, man.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Just catching up on the local crime report here.
Yeah. What's going on? Does it say?
A woman reported that she hadn't seen her niece since Thanksgiving. And after some serious investigation, they discovered that her niece doesn't live in town anymore. So.
There's nothing like small town news, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Keeping those cops busy on all that important.
All right, I bring this up constantly, but it just occurred to me. I was literally in the bathroom brushing my teeth about 2 hours ago, and I thought of this. I thought, okay, I played this up, and you had a fascinating life. You were the editor of. Not only were you the editor of Hustler, you were the editor of Hustler at the height of its popularity. I mean, when Larry Flint was going on the Tonight Show with Carson, you never did. I don't know what the hell he's alive, hugging the lifeline there. I don't know, but and I constantly make fun of the beaver hunt. So, but my question, I really thought about this is, did you come up with that? How did that start?
No, when I was when I started, all the sections were already there. So beaver hunt was something that existed. The magazine came. Larry had some clubs. His goal in life was to own some really nice nightclubs.
Uh-huh.
That's what he wanted to do. And
so, hold on, are you saying that the magazine was basically like a means to an end? Was that in his mind?
no, the magazine was he had some bars in like Cincinnati and in Dayton, Ohio, and so Larry's Hillbilly Heaven was one of them. And
I want to point out, you're serious, right? That was what it was called. Yeah, right. Okay, right.
And then so he started the Hustler clubs, and the Hustler clubs had strippers in them. It was a private club. This way, you get around some of the licensing regulations.
Do you remember how much was a membership? Do you remember?
Oh, I don't know, because the clubs actually closed by the time I got onto the thing. But
so are we talking about like the early 70s here?
Yeah, early 70s. And so he started sending out a newsletter, and to the Hustler members, it was the Hustler newsletter, and it would have pictures of some of the dancers in it, and not like a whole spread or anything like that, but just some
pun intended.
Yeah. And some other stuff. And somebody told him, hey, you got the good thing good, because Larry had his commentaries in there and some other things, and so the magazine developed out of that. And like I said, by the time I got there, it had been operation for over a year, maybe a little bit more than a year. And so all those segments were in there. Kinky Corner, which was just it was a story sent in by readers. The reader participation angle was that kind of grew out of the clubs, because guys would send in some stories to Larry, and so Beaver Hunt and the Kinky Corner were reader oriented stuff, reader contributions to the thing. And yes, I used to get to edit a whole bunch of these things. The Kinky Corners were famous for, in their original unedited form, for and then I.
It's like the thing on the Penthouse letters. I never thought these letters were real until. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, the stuff was real. We had to, clean it up a little bit. I mean, editorially clean it up. But
well, I'm going to throw this out here. Hustler kind of started, at least in the public's mind, I would say, you started kind of the reader interaction thing. I mean, there was no internet. Literally people were sending stuff in.
Mm-hmm.
But, the impression is that kind of like, more than most magazines at that time, Hustler was kind of reader driven, and that was kind of like, in that some way you were a pioneer of that.
Yeah, well, and again, Larry, he was playing to a different audience than Playboy. Playboy was supposed to be sophisticated. A lot of the guys bought it and looked at the pictures and never read any of the highbrow articles and stuff in there. but it was supposed to be aimed at the working guy, the blue collar American, hardworking kind of guy. And so, yeah, there was lots of stuff in there. We had asshole of the month, which was one of my favorite things to write, and but people would send in and say,
Hold
I
it,
look this.
hold it, just a second. Did the readers nominate the assholes of the month?
Well, they would send in and say, what about this guy? What about that guy? And uh, Larry saw all the mail, every bit of mail that came in. Larry saw it wasn't edited or culled for this or that. He saw every bit of mail, so he was hearing the voice of the readers out there, and then he would say, we should do this guy or that guy as asshole of the month, and so yeah, but it was very much tuned in to the audience.
So was the asshole of the month ultimately your choice or his?
Oh, everything was Larry's choice.
Oh, it was, huh?
The letters to the editor, he selected the ones that were going to go in there. We would do he went through the letters, like I said, read all the letters, and then he picked those. But we would do an edit on the beaver hunt, and we would do edits on some of the other stuff. But Larry read and approved every word and picture that went into the magazine.
I'll be damned. Huh. Well, and you never end up on Carson. What the hell's wrong with him?
Well, none of us were going to be on there. We we were the guys working in the background. Larry was the star, and that was fine with us.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you ever heard this. Steve Jobs always said that he never gave any public attention to any of the people, the tech guys, the programmers on his staff, because he didn't want people to steal them. That was his thing. So for the longest time, if you want to find out who worked at Apple, you had to really dig, because Jobs wasn't giving the names up.
Yeah, and that was fine with us. We were getting paid. We were doing our thing. We were rebels with a cause, and so for most of us who worked there, it wasn't about the sex. It wasn't about the naked pictures or it was about being able to write asshole of the month, or being, and the articles that we got in and the fiction that we got in, that was kind of what motivated us.
Yeah. All the times you've talked about this, when we've been in quote unquote private, I've always got the impression you had a really good time.
Yeah. It was stressful and a little bit unusual, but yeah, it was an adventure.
So what's in the news that you want to talk about? Because I got stuff here. I always got a list, but
yeah, I know you actually watch the news. We went to South Carolina for a visit. We were in the Low Country, which is southeastern South Carolina and northeastern Georgia. There, it's all about sea level, and very interesting what's going on down there, and has been for, I'd say, the last 10 years, and it's still going on. Savannah is the second busiest port in the United States after New York and New Jersey. And because of that, and it just sort of grew into that, like I said, starting about 10 years ago, and started growing. There's been all kind of development there. So there's all kind of warehouses. There are American manufacturers ship their goods there that are then, sorted and sent out overseas on cargo containers. And
just a second, just to be precise here, though, Savannah's in Georgia, and it's right on the Georgia-South Carolina border, right?
Right. Yeah. It's I don't know, about 15 miles south of the border, something like that.
And you were in that general area? Is that where?
Yeah. We were staying up near Hilton Head in South Carolina.
It's kind of like Disneyland. I've been there.
Well, Hilton Head has got a lot of stuff going on, but the whole area's got a lot of stuff going on because there's two driving forces. One is the port, and all this construction around the port. There's also all the things that support. You've got to have special crating to send stuff, and to there are all kind of warehouse support things going on, all kind of construction going on, and BMW builds all of its SUVs in Savannah. And they ship about 40% of what they build out of there to the rest of the world, and the rest of it, is sold in the Western Hemisphere. Hyundai has a plant down in Georgia as well. Other people, want to build there. These are I won't say non-union. They can have unions, but you don't have to join a union when you work someplace that
right
has
to work. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, right to work. So there's a lot of that. And then the second factor is a lot of people are retiring to that area, particularly from New England and, all along the Beltway down to Washington. So you've got all kind of, New England, Pennsylvania, New York, all that area, people moving in there. So the housing construction is just like nonstop. So the people who work in the construction field, have got a lot going on. So it was really impressive to see the development, because we went kind of all over the place to check things out. And every drive that we were on, you would see some new housing development up there. And they refer to them, they're not like subdivisions, they're plantations, because they're actually, most of this is built on old plantation land. A lot of pine plantations. There's a particular kind of pine tree that grows there, that was cultivated there, and it's used to make pulp for paper. And so these old pine plantations are being developed, but really impressive to see what was going on. Also in Savannah, they have these old trolleys. They're not on tracks, but it's an old trolley car type thing. You ride around historic Savannah, the squares, the original. You find out about the original design. Oglethorpe started the whole thing. He had drawn out the plan before he left England and was appointed governor there. And so a lot of interesting things there, but something I didn't know, there's a place called Savannah College of Art and Design that is like it's a world-renowned place. They even, the students there do internships with the Disney organization on stuff. And they have been buying, when old buildings come open, they buy them and keep them, because they want to keep that old flavor of Savannah there. So they've got about 50 buildings there that they have different kind of classes in various ones of them, or events or whatever. So that's a thriving educational thing there. Brings young people from all over the world. They got 4,000 students, and from all over the world.
And shall I assume some of these buildings they haven't had a chance to fix up, so there's just having classes in them anyway? 50 buildings is a lot.
I wasn't in them, but the impression I got was that they buy them and they fix them up. They take care of them so that they're good quality buildings. They have they build a couple of big new dorms. They've got dorms all over the place. But it's just nice to see. You think of Savannah, you think of the Old South, but it's nice to see all these young people there experiencing it and contributing to it as well. And great restaurants.
Tim, I had and I can't remember who I was talking to, because it all blends together at this point, but I had somebody on a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about the fact that I've always thought, I had not always, because this is relatively new, about the fact that what was going to happen here after COVID very quickly is that a lot of people would be moving out of huge cities that would be like New York, LA, Chicago. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I put Minneapolis in that. Minneapolis is at the fifth. We're the 15th largest city, and we're probably the smallest big city in America. That's probably the best way to put it.
Yeah.
But people would be moving out of the large cities and moving to medium-sized cities like Sioux Falls, South Dakota, or Savannah, Georgia, because there's no reason to be in a big city anymore with Zoom and stuff. People work everywhere, you know. But what turns out, I was talking to a couple of people. I might have been wrong about that. It looks like people are actually moving from big cities to really small towns, you know.
Oh.
And I don't know. I don't think Savannah would not qualify as that. But at any rate, but the reason I brought this up is because I think there's a new vibrancy to smaller town America because people are literally coming back.
Well, and people, get tired of the big city. We lived in Los Angeles for 25 years, and we liked it. It had a lot of stuff going on if you can afford it.
Yeah, right.
But it was getting more and more expensive, more and more crowded, more and more criminal. And then you've got the air, which was a problem for me. It wrecked my sinuses. So we moved to a small town. My next job, I got transferred, and it was near Sacramento, near University of California at Davis, but it was a town of about 2,000 people. And it was very suitable. It was very kind of relaxing in a way. I was still working, still doing basically the same job, but it was a more relaxing environment. So, the hustle and bustle of the big cities, particularly at the cost of everything these days, if you can't afford to go to the theater and the opera and the fine restaurants, and even if you're making a good living, you still can't afford a lot of that kind of stuff. And to put up with all the hassles of the big city is a pain. I didn't want to move to Minneapolis, but it was kind of a job decision made for me. And because I thought Minneapolis was a lot bigger than where I wanted to be. Prior to this, I was in some cities in the northeastern part of Wisconsin, and it was very nice there, very satisfying. But here I am.
Wisconsin's kind of an unusual thing because the largest city is Milwaukee, and Milwaukee isn't that big.
Right. Right. It is. And outside of Milwaukee, I mean, you've got Green Bay. Everybody's heard of Green Bay because of the football team, but it's only 55,000 people.
Right. Right.
And you got Wausau, which is about 40,000, and Madison, where it's the state capital and the universities there. Other than that, if you're looking at 5,000 or somewhere in that vicinity for almost all the rest of the cities on the map, 5,000 or less. Very, very nice, very friendly environment. But
I don't know. I don't know if this was true when you were there. Now, I have a friend of mine who moved, and I've always said for expediency, I've said on the show he lives in the UP, but he actually doesn't. He lives in Wisconsin, 30 miles from the UP border.
Mm-hmm.
So this is extreme eastern Wisconsin. And what I found there, and I found this also, I've been talking about my uncle Don, who died in Bayfield, Wisconsin a couple of weeks ago. And Bayfield is a very unusual town too. First of all, Bayfield is the smallest city, legally designated city in Bayfield, because it kind of got grandfathered in. The actual population of Bayfield is only 600 people, believe it or not, but it's considered a quote unquote city. And it is because it's the focal point of that whole region. And also it's during the summer, there's several thousand people there. I mean, people go there for the summer. It's beautiful. But what I noticed visiting Don and also visiting my friend near the UP border is that, so here in the city in Minneapolis, if I want to go anywhere, even like 6 blocks down Central Avenue, I basically have to put aside 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Can't go anywhere in less than 20 minutes. And generally it's a good half an hour, even if you're like just driving like a mile or two. It's the same thing. And I'm wondering if you found this too. it's the same amount of time, but you drive longer distances. And so in that sense, you kind of have a quote unquote metropolitan area cobbled together by a whole bunch of services that are actually fairly far apart, but because there's no traffic, it's easy to get to them, or
Yeah.
relatively speaking. So it's not really much different than living here. Is that what you found?
Well, I mean, if you're driving and there's no traffic, but you have to drive up, 15 miles or something like that, it's a very pleasant 15 miles.
Yeah,
'Cause,
right.
in LA, if you're driving, it can take you 20 minutes to go a half a mile
Right.
on,
That's
on
right.
the freeway and stuff. So, now for me, it's like if there's no big traffic uh, deal going on, I don't mind, driving for a while.
Well, and I meant that as for the very way you said is it's a positive thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it takes you 15 minutes to drive 15 miles. It takes me 15 minutes to drive down Central 6 blocks.
Yeah.
I mean, so what? Why would you put up with this crap?
Well, yeah. If you can't, if it's not work related thing, and that thing, a lot of these places where people could work remotely are pulling everybody back in, which is, it wasn't, which says to me it wasn't managed the right way. They weren't getting the productivity that they needed, or they just felt like the middle management group felt like, oh my God, they're going to get rid of us because things are getting done without us hunkering over somebody all the time. We don't actually do any work. We stand
Well,
over the
right.
people who do it. So,
They don't do any work.
yeah, yeah. So, but if you can work remotely, and we have neighbors, former neighbors who live up in the Lake Mille Lacs area, central to northern Minnesota. They both work remotely, and the companies they work for are here in the Twin Cities, but occasionally they have to drive down and be in the office for something, but they're able to do everything just fine from up there, and and they're loving it.
Yeah. When you worked for Flint Publications, and you went on, I can't remember. Did you work for Dennis for a while too? I can't remember. You edited a whole bunch of different magazines other than Hustler, and
Right.
and I mean, years ago, people couldn't even imagine it. The fact that you could actually work at home, it was a pipe dream. But
Yeah.
did you find that what you were doing was the collaborative nature of literally having desks next to other person helped? I mean, do you think you could have done that job remotely?
Well, it depends on what you're putting together. We had, the when I was editorial director at Flint, we built it up over a 10-year period to 36 magazines,
Yeah.
and uh, 33 of them were not in the sex or adult industry. They were sort of hobbyist magazines or narrow focus magazines, and we were acquire magazines, but the people that were doing them didn't have to move to Los Angeles. So we had people working remotely then. And they were the kind of magazine where you didn't have uh, like you didn't have sections of them where you had to have people come together and create a lot of stuff. There was a lot of creating things in Hustler.
Uh-huh.
But in other ones, you got your subject matter, and you get your subject matter experts who, are all freelancers basically, and the editor pulls all that stuff in. And we had our copy editors co-located because my method was the copy editors are, a copy editor on any magazine is only working about 2 months out of the cycle on the thing. Once that material passes to them, well, you hope you start working on the next magazine, but it doesn't always work that way. So one copy editor might work on 2 or even 3 magazines. So, we had to have them kind of close in. And then the art directors were doing it, but we switched to. I got the company to install a network of Macintoshes because at that time Mac was the only thing that was running Quark Express and
Right.
Photoshop and those kind of things. So once we got that, the graphic artists could get a lot of stuff done, but we all had to work there because it was all in a network.
Right.
Today you could set it up and they could actually work from home and accomplish the same thing. So the collaborative nature of it just depends on what is the subject matter of your magazine and how many people you kind of need to put that together.
Yeah, you were just at the start. That was the mid '80s. Was pretty much the very start of computer editing, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We got it in. It was, when was it? I can't even remember now. It was 87 or 88 when we went to that, and it sped up the process too in many ways, so that people, a copy editor could work on two publications because we were speeding the process of getting everything through. So yeah, it was interesting. And then in the mid '90s, I was selling advertising space out of a room in my house. I had an office in my house, and I was doing it entirely at home, selling it. I was creating what we call one shots, a buyer's guide or something like that. I was doing all the work at home and just going in maybe once every couple of weeks into the office to coordinate with some people in there. So yeah, I was working remotely a long time ago, and it was okay by me.
Well, and you were talking about being in Los Angeles. That it was good if you had the money to live there, and it was. And you and I were there at the same time. And I'm forgive me if I'm putting words in your mouth. I have a tendency to kind of romanticize my time in Los Angeles during the '80s, but I don't think it's that city's there anymore. It's like my impression that going back there to visit and stuff like that is that I don't think it's as pleasant as it was back then.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, the '80s, I was there from '78 to 2003, and by the late '80s and the early '90s, that's when all the congestion was happening, and the prices started. Everything seemed to increase pretty dramatically in terms of cost.
Uh huh.
And in those late '90s and stuff, it was, unless you were making 100 grand a year or something like that, and even at that, depending on what kind of mortgage you were paying, you might not be able to participate in all the arts and entertainment that went on in the city.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know, I haven't been back there since 2005 or something like that, and I have no. It's interesting you talk about the romanticizing. We watch shows like Bosch and some of these other shows that are set in Los Angeles, and they're going out on the streets. We see the places that we knew and actually went to and stuff. Oh, we ate there. We stopped there once, and so it's like, oh yeah, we miss the vibe of the city and the things we used to do, but living there again, I don't know. I don't know what the real setup is.
Yeah, I haven't been to New York in quite a few years, and I used to go there quite regularly. But I'm under the impression the last 5, 7 years, people I know that live there said that New York has really gone to hell. It's
Yeah,
like, it's just
gone to shit. I haven't been there. We used to go about every year back in the day, but no, I haven't been there in a long time, and no interest in going there. We went there to visit people. We knew people in New York, but I also went there on business, quite often, and so that's a little bit different when you're doing it that way.
So getting back to the thing about you talking about Savannah. So I read Charles Gasparino. He's a business writer for Breitbart, and
Mhm.
I really like him because first of all, he has a really interesting history too. He's a former professional boxer. And he ended up in investigative journalism. It was pretty funny. But again, maybe it takes a boxer to get some good results. I don't know.
Yeah.
But so he writes the business beat, and I subscribed to his newsletter, and I was reading it today. It came out, and he's talking about the fact that so far, and this is what I've discerned too, but I'm just wondering, especially in light of your recent trip, so far the tariffs that Trump instituted haven't affected business in the United States greatly, but he thinks at this point, this is his 2 bits just talking to his business leaders.
Mhm.
People are going to very quickly run out of patience. He said either Trump has to figure something out here and get these tariffs negotiated, or basically the corporate business is going to start to rebel and say, "F you, we're just going to raise the prices." Because
Well,
and I know you're not a Trump fan, and that's kind of the reason I brought this up. Trump basically told corporate business, he said, "You guys just eat this for a while," and so far they have been. But he says,
they can't. They can't continue to eat that, and they shouldn't have to eat it at all. And frankly, the president, no matter who he is, doesn't have the right to tell businesses how to operate their business.
no, he doesn't.
He doesn't have any say in that. But if your costs go up, you have to raise the prices in order to handle that. Might have to do some other, lean sculpting in your business, but they're going to have to raise prices. And then the whole, Trump started off saying that all these other countries have been ripping them off, and we're going to make them pay. Well, the countries that we import stuff from don't pay tariffs. Tariffs are paid by the people who import the goods and distribute the goods here. China doesn't pay a nickel in tariffs. None of these people do. It's all borne by U.S. businesses, and so that'll put more money in the coffers, which is what he's talking about. But even recently, as in the last couple of weeks, he said something about the China and somebody paying their share and somebody else paying their share. So he doesn't understand that the foreign countries do not pay the tariffs; they're paid here. Business. I don't know why anybody capitulates to his demands anyway. Walmart is bigger than the government. If Walmart wants to say we're going to raise prices because of the tariffs, and the president says, "Well, you better not do that," it's like, well, tough, buddy. We're in business. This is private business. This is not a government entity. So to hell with you. And
well, I got the impression, especially even reading Gasparino, I got the impression that a lot of people are saying, well, okay, we'll do this for a while, kind of as our patriotic duty, and this is a very, like you said, I agree with you. It's a very nice gesture because you're still losing money, but no one's going to want, well, that was Gasparino's point. Nobody wants to lose money forever. No one's going to do it.
Well, you can't, and you're publicly traded. You don't respond to the president of the United States. You respond to your shareholders.
Yeah.
Now, Trump is a majority shareholder and says don't do it. Well, that's one thing, but he's not. So all of these companies are going to have to do this. The other thing is this: today we've got a tariff, and tomorrow we don't have the tariff. And today we've got 145%, and tomorrow we've got 30%. That kind of jacking people around. The whole business community is just sitting there saying, do we do anything and wait to see where this all lands? Or do we go ahead, do we just stop and it's really confusing and really shakes up the market. And one day the market's up and one day the market's down. And, it's a disaster. And like I said, I think Gasparino is right. It's for a short term, and I think a very short term, people might go along with it, but they've got to the company's got to go ahead and do what they need to make their earnings, to satisfy their investors, to keep the doors open.
Yeah, and I thought of you today. Another piece of news came out and made me think of you ASAP about the fact that and I can't remember where this is, and does it even matter, that some judge somewhere has put a kibosh, an injunction on the Trump administration thing about shutting down the Department of Education. So the logic is by the judge that this department was created by Congress, so it can only be closed by Congress. But and this reminds me of when you were running for president. That's the reason I thought of you. Believe it or not, we got a call. I'm gonna take this right now. Hold on. Hey, caller. Hi. How you doing?
Hey, Jim. It's me, Think again. I'm
Hey,
sorry.
Think. No, that's all right. Nice hearing from you. How are you?
Great.
Say hello to.
Am I coming in clear?
Say hello to Tim Conaway. Yeah.
Oh, hi, Tim. Hi, Tim.
I think.
I wanted to just. Hey, I want to talk about this whole tariff thing. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if Trump raises the tariffs, not everything at Walmart is going to go up in price, right? Just the products that are from China that have been tariffed. So Trump didn't tariff everything in China. He just tariffed certain things. So even though there's tariffs going on, it's not like you buy apples that are grown locally. Those aren't going to go up in price. Just the things that are from China, right? I think that's how these tariffs work. And go ahead.
Well, there are other. He's got tariffs on other places as well as China, and we do get produce from Mexico and from other places in Central America. We even get food items from some European countries, and so about 80% of consumer goods in the country. I don't know, what applies to Walmart, but come from some other country. So it's not just the goods from China; it's goods from all over the world where he has imposed tariffs, and again, anybody's going to have to raise their prices to make up for any of those things.
Hey, Tim.
Yeah, but it's me.
Go ahead, Think. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay. So from what I think China is getting the biggest tariffs. So whatever product is from China, they're going to get really high tariffs. But from what I know about Mexico, you're going to see barely any increase in price. In fact, I have it. And the main thing of the left is talking about is your avocados are going to go up. The avocados I've been buying at Walmart are still the same price, 88 cents here in upstate New York. But and it's always been this way. In fact, when Biden was president, I remember they were $1.25 at one time, sometimes even like $2. So 88 cents for avocados, I think that's not bad. And that's from Mexico. I haven't seen the prices of things from China that has been increased. I shop at Walmart almost every day, by the way, you guys. I work with Walmart. I was just one of my biggest contractors. And I rarely buy anything from Walmart that says made in China in it anymore. Almost all the products that I buy are either made in India.
I gotta ask you, Think.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, are you saying that you don't buy stuff from made from China in Walmart, or that they're not selling much? Clarify what you're talking about.
They're not selling much.
Okay.
That's right. They're not selling much, and I keep a track on this because I want to know what country is making, where these products are coming from. It's just one of my. It's like looking at the ingredients. That's one of my pets. I like where these products come from, and I don't see anything that's made in China that I buy from Walmart in terms of food. I don't buy them any electronics and stuff from Walmart, but in terms of food and other things like my art tools or whatever, I don't see anything made in China in terms of those. So if there's going to be an increase in tariffs, it won't affect me, but maybe it might affect another person. But before I hang up, can I
No.
just give you guys a weird example?
Yeah, go ahead.
Please,
I don't want
please.
you to hang up because I want to run the same question. I want to when you're done here, I want to finish the question I have for Tim because I want to know what you think too. But go ahead, think.
Okay, yeah, I want to talk about way back in the 80s. Cigarettes back in the 80s, Marlboro cigarettes were about $2 or $1.75 to $2.
Yeah.
I think that's what I remember, right?
Yeah.
But here in upstate New York, we have Indian reservations, and they also have cigarette brands up here, and their cigarette brands were only like 50 cents a pack.
Uh-huh.
And I remember because my parents worked at the casino up here. So in the 90s, they opened up a casino in upstate New York and started selling these Indian cigarettes. And nobody bought them because they were 50 cents. They were thinking these are cheap. So they would buy the Marlboro cigarettes. And then Newports and then Camels eventually became popular like late in the 90s. And they started buying these. But those cigarettes were only like $2. Then in the late 90s, when the cigarette packs went to $5 or $7, more and more people started buying these local Indian brands, which were only 50 cents. And now the cigarettes in upstate New York are about $15 a pack for Marlboro. And and I'm telling you, the majority of people are buying these Indian cigarettes that are made on these Indian reservations.
Yeah, well, and the Indians as sovereign nations, see, the reason stuff costs so much is the high taxes that are placed on cigarettes. The federal and state taxes on them are a big thing of driving up the prices. The Indians don't put any of those taxes on it. They don't have to put any tax on the thing. And the best thing about the Indian cigarettes is it's real tobacco. It's not the shavings, scraps off the floor in the tobacco factory. It's actual real tobacco. So if you're going to smoke them, smoke the real ones.
Hey, I've never asked either one of you guys. Do you still smoke?
No, when I started vaping, I eventually. There's a big story for this, but I'm just going to say vaping helped me stop.
Well, I know quite a few. I know quite a few
Vaping.
people who said that who vaped to quit smoking, and it worked. Tim, have you ever smoked?
Yeah.
Yeah, I smoked for about 15 years, and then I quit, and just before vaping. So yeah, I quit. I don't smoke anymore. I used to have the occasional cigar, but even that is beyond me at this stage.
All right, I want to both of you guys before Tim before you came on. This is what I'm going to ask Tim. So Tim was running for president, and I was talking about the fact that this judge, some district judge somewhere, wouldn't let the Trump administration shut down the Department of Education. And I understand the logic about the fact that judge says, well, it was technically created by Congress, so Congress has to cut it, has to eliminate it. But this judge also wouldn't let him fire anybody in the Department of Education. I mean, I remember, Tim, when you were running and I was having you on and we are talking about your campaign, I thought, well, you could get around that. Okay, maybe you don't close it, but you could, if you have a department that's 50,000 people, maybe you fire everybody but 100, and then so the department's still running. But that's the judge won't let Trump do that either. And I'm getting pissed off.
Okay, well, let's hear what Think has to say.
Yeah, what do you think? Think? You still there?
I had I'm still here. I had an opinion of. I don't think that that the judge could override what the president wants, especially if it's the majority of people agree with it. But in terms of the legal system, I'm sorry, I don't know who's in power in terms of these laws that are being passed.
Yeah,
I think it goes through the Supreme Court. So, right?
I know. I agree. No, that's my problem too. I don't see how one stupid judge somewhere can stop the whole administration from doing something. I understand the Supreme Court doing it because they're on the same level. As far as the sports team the league is concerned. So if the Supreme Court tells Trump he can't do something, he can't do it. But I don't understand why some lowly judge, and especially, like I said, I understand the logic of not being able to shut the department down, but I don't understand how you could determine how many people work there. That's the part I don't get. And so, and getting back to your campaign, Tim, I mean, that was one of the hallmarks of what you wanted to do, and all of a sudden you're fucked.
Well, there's constitutionally speaking, the Congress has the right to set up these departments, and so only Congress can get rid of the department.
Right.
And in fact, there is a provision in this big, beautiful bill to get rid of the Department of Education. So if Congress passes that, then that part is done. In terms of being able to fire people, and judges, let me clarify this too. It's not just the Supreme Court that can say these things. Judges, based on the Constitution, lower level judges can make these decisions. The thing can be elevated to the Supreme Court, but any judge anywhere, well, any federal judge can say, constitutionally speaking, you can't do that. So it doesn't have to be equal to Trump, and it doesn't matter what the people want. The Constitution says how it works. If all the people in the country want to change that, then you have to actually amend the Constitution and go through that process, and the process is spelled out. In terms of firing people, you do have this federal union, I'll call it. I don't know if they use the word union, but whatever it is. And so based on the way that's set up, the judge could put an injunction on that. But it's, when you use the word firing people as opposed to laying people off or reducing staff or something like that, and there's a method for going about this stuff. You don't just come in with a chainsaw like that idiot Elon Musk and, we just cut all these people out. You have to do it with some kind of method. The other thing is there's a shit ton of money allocated to the Department of Education, and I would like to see that go out to all the school systems in the nation without any federal strings tied to it.
Right.
So we'll see how that plays out. But there's a way of getting rid of these people, but if you just come in and hack them off, then you're going to get this backlash. What should have been done, the first thing Doge should have come up with is a way to get rid of the Federal Employees Union. And I had plans for how that would work, and you couldn't do it on the first day in office, which is apparently the only time things could be done. So the judge is right on the one thing. On the other thing, it's a tricky issue with unions, and just got to play it a little bit more smooth.
Think anything you want to add?
Yeah, I want to ask Tim. I have a liberal friend that speaks basically similar to what Tim is saying. So, Tim, you don't think that Elon Musk overlooking government spending was a good thing?
No.
You basically believe that the government has been doing a good job in terms of where their finances has been going?
Oh, no, the government hasn't been doing a good job at all, but there is a way to make these changes and to make these moves and to bring things down. Elon Musk is a computer programmer. People say he's a genius. He made all this money to begin with. Was he and another guy wrote an algorithm to allow people to pay for things online when you order stuff online, or PayPal. And the big plus for him was they did it at the right time. If they'd done it earlier, e-commerce wouldn't have been a big enough thing to make it float, and they could have stayed alive till it did. That's the question. If he'd have done it later, there had already been other algorithms out there, because it's not a genius thing. It's just guys who can do that kind of programming can come up with that kind of stuff. He comes in, and what they want to do is go on the computers and figure out based on what people are doing on their computers. If you're going to, I ran places where I had to do more with less. I had to be more efficient with, I could never ask for more people. How can we get more stuff out the door? You can't ask for more people. Okay, so we got to be more efficient. And there's a process for finding out how to be more efficient. In the process of finding out how to be more efficient, you find out where you can make cuts in people. It's not disruptive. It takes maybe 6 months, or it takes maybe a year in some areas to do it. But in 6 months to a year, using this method, what I had planned to do was cut down the government by 25 to 30%, because it is way too big. In the first year, cut it down by 25 to 30% without disrupting what was going on. I also wanted to get rid of the Department of Education, but I would have approached Congress to do that, and would also cut the efficiency. There's duplication of effort in across all these. There are 15 departments now in the federal government, and several departments have agencies or subgroups that are basically doing the same job. So you eliminate that kind of stuff. To cut this down effectively in a way that lasts and still give the American public the services that they deserve, you have to be strategic and you have to be patient.
I want to point out to both you guys and also the audience too, you're talking about different departments. I think one of the most egregious examples of this is the Department of National Intelligence. We have 17 different agencies under the Department of dealing with quote unquote national intelligence. 17. What the fuck? You probably only need 2, you know? It's completely blown up. We used to have the FBI and the CIA, and that got the job done for 50, 60 years, and now we got 15 others. What do they do? I just piss me off.
Yeah, and again, there's duplicated efforts. You cut all that stuff down. To me, Department of Labor, I don't see in the Constitution where, and that's the thing about the Constitution and honoring the Constitution. The Constitution doesn't give Congress any say over education, doesn't give it any say over labor. Now, the argument is, well, that's part of commerce, and that the Constitution does specifically mention commerce, but I don't believe in that. There are like 3 or 4 other departments that clearly don't fit into any of the parameters, even if you take a wide kind of vague interpretation of what the terms mean, in that there are 8 areas that are outlined in the Constitution that the U.S. Congress can deal with. And if it's not in there, then it's up to the states to deal with it.
Yeah.
So
I have to admit, I kind of like.
I got it.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
All right. I gotta say, I'm glad Elon Musk did what he did, and I'm glad that Donald Trump actually set up a team that was not government affiliated. I don't trust this government currently, or before Trump's. What I saw growing up was the government here started getting more and more corrupt. I told Jim before, when Obama became president, I left the country. I was following all the corruption, and I thought it was going to get worse. But I got to tell you, I don't trust the government. I heard so many stories, even like the whole "We Are the World." Remember, Michael Jackson made that song "We Are the World," and they got all this money. That money that they spent actually ended up going to fund African guerrillas. There was this movie called Hotel Rwanda. The militia in that movie was funded by USA for Africa. So all the money that they got for that song and all this big thing. The USA side took about 25% of the money, gave 75% of it to the Africa side, and in the Africa they took about 75% of that 75% of the money and only gave like 25% to the actual people that needed it. The kids with the skinny and flies flying off, they only gave like 25%. The rest of the money went and funded the militia. And what did those people end up doing? They started buying guns. And here's the crazy thing. They started killing their own kind because they had a different name. That's where all this funding is going. Now, if the government had looked at this, they wouldn't have even paid attention. They all buddy in the government. So for Trump to come in and say, hey, I don't want anybody that's part of the government to overlook this. I want an independent person, independent group that has no affiliation, no agenda. So I want them to thoroughly look at this and make their decision. This was done in the past with, have you ever seen that movie about Scarface called Untouchables? That group was also not part of the government. And that's what it took to take down Scarface back in the days. And so that's why I think this is a good thing. And I don't think Elon Musk is making any changes. He's just pointing out the rules. Like he's just pointing out what's wrong. That's all he's doing. He's data collecting for the Trump and his team. He said that's all. They're not making any changes. They're just collecting the data. That's all they're doing.
Yes, he is.
And the fact that they're doing it for free. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You're right. He's technically a consultant. He doesn't have any actual power. All he does is make recommendations. That's true.
That's right. That's right.
You just said something that made me think. If they're going to send that money to Africa, maybe we should let the gorillas be congressmen. Maybe that'd be a good idea.
Yeah. Well, that was all the U.S. aid, and one thing that Trump did was he stopped everything coming out of the U.S. aid office, including aid to stuff here in America. They should have been more specific about that. Again, I had a more strategic plan for doing that, but I think the money we spend in foreign aid is, as Think pointed out, it goes through so many hands before it gets to the people that need it that there's very little left at that point. And we were giving foreign aid to Russia, and not directly to Russia, but to groups in Russia and China and Iran. And it's like, let's be a little bit more careful where we spend our dollars. The foreign aid is definitely, and yeah, there's, you're paying these groups and you're hoping to get their support when international matters come up. You're hoping that maybe you can get some business interest for the United States companies in these countries, or some deals on raw materials or something like that. There's a business angle to giving these kind of support, this kind of aid, but it's incredibly corrupt and also just shouldn't. But we should keep giving aid in the U.S., but we have to look out for all the fraudsters here as well. There has to be an accountability, and there has not been accountability in foreign or U.S. aid for the last 30 or 40 years.
I think you called in. You called in last night, and I've been thinking, and Don Zorro was on the show on Monday, and you're talking about the fact you don't trust the government. My feeling is a little nuanced. I would say I don't believe the government, and I'm starting not to believe the government on anything. I'm becoming such a cynic. And just an example here, so Kash Patel and Dan Bongino came out this week, and they said that they have pretty much concluded that it was really true that Jeffrey Epstein actually did commit suicide. And it's not that I don't believe those guys. I do. I mean, I do not think they're lying, but I'm listening to Jimmy Fallon on his radio show a few nights ago, and he's saying, And he said, well, yeah, they're not lying because the people who killed him are total professionals. And they set it up so that it looks like he killed himself. And then on top of all that, it's like, this is the part that the kicker for me is like, okay, for some reason the cameras in the goddamn prison weren't working that night. And I'm so tired of these coincidences. I'm so tired. No, it's not just a coincidence. At some point you have to say, no, this is bullshit. I mean, okay, these people, maybe these guys aren't lying, but no, they're wrong. You know, and I'm sorry, and I don't have any proof. I'm sitting here in my underwear in Minneapolis. I have no proof this guy was murdered. None, but I'm just like so cynical at this point. You know?
Yeah, well, I was taught from a very early age never to trust the government, so I have never, under any administration, you know, I have some conservative political views, but I don't really align myself with any of these parties. And I certainly don't trust anything that anybody in the government has ever said.
Yeah. And think we were talking last night, you and it made me think of the same thing. It's like, I can't believe any of these people about anything.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the media right now. You've seen the clips where they put 40 different channels together and it's literally all saying the same exact thing, word for word. I mean, that alone should show some sort of manipulation or a form of corruption by them making one narrative and not allowing the full truth. They're telling the public one narrative, like this whole Epstein thing. They're saying that he didn't do it, and the same with the JFK thing. The government's going to, and the same with the UFOs. That's their narrative in this.
Yeah,
and I got to tell you the truth. I got to tell you the truth, Jim. I don't think the government knows. I think that the Epstein didn't kill himself, but the government doesn't have enough evidence. Whoever did this did it so well where even the government couldn't detect it. That's what I just said?
Yeah, I totally buy what you're saying. Yeah. I think that's true. They literally, they either don't know, or like you said, they don't have enough evidence to make a definitive determination, one or the other. So because of that, they default to the fact that it was real, because they don't have enough evidence. But you know, then you get to the question, and Tim and I have talked about this offline, about like, what's evidence? You know, how many people, you know, so okay, Robert Tannenbaum comes on this show, and he was the guy, working for the House Select Committee on Assassinations, and him and his boss, they quit because they said they had definitive proof that Oswald wasn't doing the shooting in Dealey Plaza, and he said the committee wouldn't believe him, so they quit. Okay, so the question is, so then you question literally, what's definitive proof, or how many witnesses? You know, Tim and I have talked about this offline. Think about the fact that my thing on the UFOs right now is that it's so easy to fake photographs. No photographs count anymore. Like, for example, this is 2 weeks ago. There's this guy in Brazil. He's a fashion photographer. They're doing a fashion photo shoot outside somewhere. There's models and stuff. And all of a sudden a model points up and says, "What's that?" And there's a damn flying saucer right overhead. And so the guy takes 2 shots. Now he's got a DSLR camera. He's a professional photographer, and there's a whole bunch of witnesses. Everybody said this was real, all right? And these pictures came out, and they're clear as day. That's a freaking flying saucer, and I can't buy it. It's just because it's like, well, they're too good, you know? And it's like, it's just like, so what do you believe? I mean, if 60 people are in Dealey Plaza and they all said, including John Connolly, who was a marksman, that the shots came from the grassy knoll, at what point do you say no? I mean, you know, that's the thing. It's like, what is proof anymore? Now it's a giant, giant gray area about everything, and I don't believe anything. That was my story.
Too much. I don't know if it's because the government's covering this up or if they just don't know it.
Right.
They just don't know. We cannot think that the government here knows everything. It's the truth. The government didn't create the internet. Let's get this clear. The government did not create the internet. It did not create cars. It did not create electricity. It didn't do this. The regular people did.
Al Gore didn't do that
and
stuff.
The government has no. Al Gore did it.
He did all that stuff.
Jobs, there was a group of people that messed around with the phone lines, and that was the first internet. And eventually, the government started dabbling in what these people discovered that they could do. And it's things like that. The government doesn't know everything. The government just doesn't know everything. And so for the government to say Epstein didn't kill himself does not mean that, that does not mean that that's true. There's too much evidence is pointing to that he was murdered. Come on, the camera was turned off.
Yeah,
the security guards weren't there.
Right. It makes no sense, and that's the thing. How many coincidences do you need? It's just the cameras just happen not to be working. Oh yeah, okay, sure. Right. The security guards are all asleep. Oh yeah, sure, fine. Yeah, right. Yeah, Tim, I'm giving you the last word here. I'm going to shut this thing down.
Okay. Well, you know what? I wanted to get into this a little bit, but I was
please do.
Thinking of back, because we've talked about we used to be liberals and now we're conservatives, and I was thinking, was I really a liberal? Because I was when I was a teenager and I was in my 20s, I believed in the civil rights issue. This is what it came up. I was at a school the other night, and there was some stuff up there about some people in the civil rights movement, and I was thinking, the 60s was particularly the late 60s. The hippie movement. Everybody, you demonize the opposition. Trump's approach, which is he does it in a very childish and poor way, but you demonize the opposition. So when young people started rejecting the norms of society, then they got labeled as dirty hippies and all that kind of stuff. But we came out of World War II with during World War II, every factory turned to making munitions or planes or whatever it needed to make for the war effort. There was rationing. We all got to stick together and win the war, and it was a great thing. And we won. We won the war. If we had not been involved, who knows? I think it had gone on forever, or Hitler would have had all of Europe or some kind of shit. So, yeah, it was a great effort. We needed to do it, but we came out of that as a regimented society, people willing to take orders. So many people were involved in the military. So you had this very conformist society, and people had their roles and people had their places. Women worked in all these factories because the men were involved in the military. But then when it came back, we had to get back to that. No women in the factories, and no, women don't work. They stay home and raise kids and all this kind of stuff. And so, in the 60s, you got this generation of people who feel that free spirit that's always been a great part of the American experiment. And it's saying, we reject all that kind of stuff. We don't have to fill that role. We don't have to fit into these narrow confines. And, that was the thing that appealed to me. And then you get into the area of equal rights and equal opportunities, which is a great thing. And we were moving in that direction. Then somewhere along the line, we got into equality instead of equal rights. Well, equality means we're all the same, and we're not all the same, intellectually and physically and mentally and spiritually and in abilities, skills and ability. We're not all the same. Now they use this word equity, which is a financial term. It means, that something that you've invested in your investment is now worth what you put into it. So you're on even ground. And all this stuff was being codified. The DEI thing, was a codification of social issues, and the government should not codify social standings, social norms, or social issues. With Trump, we've got Project 2025, which is an attempt to return us to 1952, where the women stay home and have babies, and the men do this, and white people are superior to black people, and all that kind of shit. So, the government needs to stay out of that. And that was a big thing about protesting the war in Vietnam had very little to do with the war in Vietnam. It was protesting the right of the government to send us off to fight someplace else in a war that had nothing to do with us.
Yeah, well, the other thing too, and I've said this often. The fact is that the young people in the 1960s that protested that war, they turned out to be right. I mean, that was all for nothing.
Yeah, exactly. There were some intellectuals at the top of that, effort, and there was also of course, the accusations that there were these commie agitators on college campuses and do it. So I was on college campus. I never met a commie agitator. These were intellectuals. These were all these ideas. But the other part of it is, this diversity worked into there, because if you look at everybody as a person, if you hire people, you accept them for educational institutions, if you accept them socially based on their personality, their ability, their skills, their willingness to do the job, the willingness to treat other people fairly, then you're no longer recognizing that they're black or Asian or Latino or whatever. And that cuts out a whole shitload of people from the money game. that cuts out all of these, activists and their organizations. And so that's why, we got to push for diversity, and we got to codify it into everything we do. So whenever I think about all these things, I think the problem is, the government should stick to governing, stick to treaties, the military, interstate commerce, making it easy for the states to interact with each other, and the government should stay out of legislating or dictating morality or social issues or any of that kind of stuff. So
you were talking about like the regimenting of society after World War II, and I think a good example of this. I get back to the UFO stuff, but I still think it's a good example. So the Roswell thing happened 2 years after the World War II was done.
Right.
And the people in Roswell who said the government came and told them not to talk about this, and there were a lot of them, like 600 of them, from what I understand. All of them said, at that time, if the government told you to do something, you assume the government was right in their best interest. And that's one of the primary reasons all these people clammed up, because they said, yeah, at that it's basically bolstering your point. At that point in history, people trusted the government implicitly. So if the government told you to do something, you assumed they were right, and you assumed it was your best interest, so you did not talk.
Yeah, and that's, the era where we get books like 1984, which kind of, the government is going to control your thoughts and your actions. The government needs to stay out of that. And that's one of my biggest gripes, the size and waste of the federal government, the corruption of the government, the constant lies from the government. All are on a shelf just below the one where they try to codify our existence That is the scariest part of all.
Yeah, but so let me ask you something, and that is exactly what Tim is alluding to here, and that is it natural for a group of people just end up wanting to control other people? I mean, is that I'm starting to think this is just a natural human thing. It's like, so you got a government, and like Tim says, in the United States, we're not supposed to control the populace. The rules, it's basically just set up rules so that we can live. And yet you almost inevitably get some group that wants to control another group of people.
Yeah, when in terms of government, I would think that eventually all governments want to control the people. Now, in terms of religion, it's something else. And I think this country was originally based off of religion. The foundations of this country is the Bible itself. And I told you the benefits of having a Bible. I'm more a Buddhist, or you can even call me an atheist, but I strongly believe that people should believe in the Bible. Read the Bible, understand it. It keeps people in check. It makes people civilized. And the religion is where we talk to each other as friends. But when you talk in government, like police officers, judges, Congress people, they all want authority and they all want to control the people. That's how I see it. All governments, it doesn't matter which government it is. No,
it doesn't,
capitalism, any government. Yeah, that's right. And it's all for control. But let me ask you this, though, Jim. Is it wrong, though? I think yesterday you and I had said this. We're living in someone's house, right? Should we follow their rules, or do we make the rules? We're living in their house, right?
No, we're living in our own house. This country is the Constitution, which is, I think, the greatest document in history, or certainly one of the top three. This country is founded on the idea that the people run the country. We elect representatives to represent us, to look out for certain needs that we can't do as individuals or even as small groups. But we're not living. It's our house. It's the people's house, and the government works for us. And that's the way, or it should work for us. That's the way it's set up. We're not living in the government's house. We don't belong to the government. The government has the final say over us.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with that belief. I strongly agree with that belief. But at the same time, I know that if it's my house, right, and the house next door burns down, it's really not my place to say whether they should fix their house or not, because I'm living in my house. And all the stuff outside my house is not of my concern. But we're living in a country where it's a concern for everybody. The best way to say this is that I told Jim, I don't believe this is a free country. Nothing in this country is free. You can't just get in a car and drive. You have to have a driver's license. The car has to be registered. It has to be inspected. The wheels have to be a specific type of wheel. All kinds of rules and regulations. You can't drive drunk. You can't do all kinds of things. And this is to protect other people, not just you, to protect other people as well. So even though we say this is our house, there's rules and regulations that protect other people as well, because we're not living alone in one house. We're a bunch of people in one house. Does that make sense to what I said? I believe what you're saying, and I wish that was the fact. But your belief and my belief are different. There needs to be an equality. What is it, though, the word? When everything is leveled, there needs to be a balance from your belief and my belief, because we live in a society with a whole bunch of different people believing in different ideas in different ways. So there has to be a balance. It cannot be one person that the whole country justifies everything based on that one person. I'm not making sense. I know it's a really complex thing I'm trying to say.
No, I hear you. And well, see, I was talking about the role of the government and the role of the people. Now, when you're talking about society, and that's, I make a distinction. Government shouldn't control society. Uh, you do need regulations for people driving and cars. We need laws, murder. We have laws against murder and robbery and burglary and fraud, you know, and we ask the government to make those laws for us, and we pretty much accept, most of those kind of laws. But from a societal standpoint, yeah, we should be more free to make our own choices in society, but there's a lot of pressure from a lot of areas, uh, not just the government, but from religion. Uh, and well, I won't go. That's a whole other hour of talking about
Yeah.
religion and government together. But the corporations, the business world, also wants society to conform to certain ways. So yeah, we should be more free as a society. Uh, we should recognize that, and government should serve us, not the other way around.
I just thought of something. I think a perfect example of what you're trying to get at is this whole transgender issue. Like, for example, and I'm assuming you guys probably agree with me. I don't care at all if some man wants to live like a woman. I do not give a crap. You put a dress on, put some lipstick on, you go out. God bless you. Do what you got to do. But the problem with men playing in women's sports is it's alluding to what you're talking about not being free, in the sense that once a biological man, starts to play with biological women, most people, including myself, look at that as intrinsically unfair. So at that point, as a transgender man, I think the impression is you are infringing on other people's rights. So you're talking about, like, just even the laws about driving a car. You're right. We're not free, but those things are more, and this is your point, I know that, are more or less necessary so that society can function correctly. And I think that the transgender issue is a perfect example of that, because you can't have men playing against women and have that be well, I don't want to use that word, fair. You can't. It's not fair. It's simply not fair, and that's the problem. And right now, this is really interesting. David Strom on Hot Air today, our friend here, has been on the show many times. He wrote a story about the difference today between liberals and leftists, and I thought it was really telling about the fact that, and he was specifically referencing this killing that happened of two Israeli people at the Israeli embassy in New York City, about the fact that, yeah, and I read a thing, and that really, really made me think, by a woman named Emma Jo Morris, and I can't remember where she wrote this article, about the fact that she said she went to one of these Palestinian rallies, and she came to the sudden realization that this is not a political issue. She said, all of a sudden it struck me, these people are mentally ill, and I'm starting to think that she might have something here. It's like they're so, and so Strom is talking about the difference between liberals and leftists, and he's kind of alluding to the same thing. The leftists are I talk about people. I don't use terms on the show all the time about being batshit crazy, but they are. They're not real liberals. It's not. They're not. Your standard ordinary Democrat. I look at like a guy like Bill Maher, who I have a lot of disagreements with about policy, but he seems like a rational person. He's a thinking person, and I just happen to disagree with him. These people that Strom is calling leftists, they're nuts, And I don't know how the hell I got from the transgender issue. Oh, about the transgender issue, because the transgender people who are advocating for these men playing in women's sports, I think they're crazy. They're literally crazy. And I'm starting to think Emma Jo Morris is actually onto something here. There's some sort of mass psychosis going on in the public, and it's obviously not the majority of the public, but there's a certain segment of the public that's just plain freaking nuts. And I think it's growing. And that was her her thing too. That she brought up the fact that psychologists said there's 6 times more narcissism among college students now as there was 50 years ago or something like that. However you measure that, I don't know, but I guess they do. You know,
Well, they make it up. Well, one of these things. Again, this topic of the transgender thing. If we had just let society take care of that, society would have fixed that. But instead, people are trained to. We want the institution to decide what's going on.
You're absolutely correct. That's right.
We want the government to decide what's going on.
Right.
No, that's a social issue. Let society take care of it. And if society felt free to take care of it, these ball-bearing guys in their what is it? I can't even think of the name for this female swimsuit. But anyway, yeah. No, there's a Malinois or something like that.
Okay.
Anyway, these guys they would have had their noses busted. I mean, they would have been taken to the deep end and pounded. The other women, just let them figure it out. Let that happen, or just these people could have not competed, or they could have kept them from competing some way without having to get ultra violent about it. But no, everybody is trained to sit back and say, "Oh, what's the institution going to do? Oh,
right.
what's the government going to do?"
You're absolutely correct.
And it's a societal issue. It's not up to institutions and government. It's up to us to take care of that.
I do think it needs to be pointed out, Tim, that the people that want institutions to decide this are in the minority. I don't mean they're in a minority. It's a relatively small number of people. It's not the majority of the populace who wants. I mean, the majority of the populace wants to do this the way you did, and this kind of got lost during the election. But the number one issue in the election for people who voted for Trump was actually the transgender issue. Inflation was second. I mean, there's pretty much universal. Everyone seems to think this is wrong, but there's a small number of people that want institutions to impose this on us. And that's actually the problem.
Oh, want the institution to impose. I'm talking about they want the institution to take care or to make the decision, or they want the government. Oh, we're going to elect Trump and he'll take care of this. No, society takes care of it. You all get together, as parents and as competitors, and tell the other person, you can't do this. You can't be on this team. You can't play here. And that's the end of it. And if they want to go sue and do all this other thing, it's like, well, there is no legal standard for it to sue over, because it hasn't been made into a legal issue. There aren't any laws. It isn't an institutional issue because the institutions haven't said anything about it. Government and the institutions have said, let society take care of it, and society works it out. Yeah, the people who want to get in there want the institution to say, oh, you have to let them do that. And when the institution does that, they have failed us. When the government does it one way or the other, they have failed us, because they're saying you have to depend on us to work these things out for you. Work them out yourself.
Think you were going to say something? You got cut off?
Yeah. I was just going to say, I thought that the people didn't want this. There was that mayor. She recently was in at one of those Trump conferences where she said, "Well, I'll see you in court." Trump had told her, the people wanted you not to allow transsexual men playing sports. And
that was the governor of Maine, right?
I'm going to see you in court.
Yeah. No, the thing is, we're not.
I thought that the government was forcing it.
We're talking about talking about the same thing here, except the thing is, the only difference I'd say what Tim just said is that right now the institutions, or the people that want institutions to decide this, are succeeding. That's the problem. I mean, it should go exactly the way Tim said. I mean, it's like, yes, this is a societal issue that should be decided outside of government or outside of law. But right now, the people who want to impose this on society are, I would say that at the present time, they're succeeding. I don't think they're going to much longer. But that's what's been going on the last few years. And yeah, that's wrong too. That's totally wrong. And in that sense, the government has failed us. Absolutely. Guys. All right.
I'm going to just. Okay, can I say this one?
Yeah,
last
please
thing,
do. Yeah.
Real quick. The only thing that I have against libertarianism, I don't know if I'm saying the word right, is there's a borderline between their theory and anarchy, and that's very, very fine. It's a very fine line between what they believe in and anarchy, and that's my only fear, that we live in a society with no laws. All the people that are coming here illegally to this country are not coming here for anarchy, not coming here for freedom. They're coming here. They're dying to come here because of the justice system here. That's what makes this country so great. They know that if they come here, they can build something because they will be protected and be surrounded by people that will help them become something instead of where they were originally from, which was a free country like South America or Africa or all these other countries,
or Venezuela,
where they were being abused. Yeah,
Venezuela.
Where
that's just abused. Sad. What's happened there? It's unbelievable. I mean, you talked about one of the most prosperous countries on earth, and 30 years completely went to hell. I mean, it's unbelievable. And people say, "Oh, it's socialism works." Bullshit. Just look at this. I mean, for sakes. Right. All right. Well, guys, I tell you what. Well, we're running out of time, so I'm going to let both you guys go, and I'm going to wrap this up. I really appreciate this. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, it's good to talk to you.
Yeah.
Nice talking with you guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
You take care. Bye-bye.
And I just want to finish on this note. A guy once told me, brought up the anarchy, and a guy said, anarchy is a great idea until you've got two people.
Okay, well put. Right. Yeah. Socialism is a good idea if you don't have any stuff. Hey, Tim, it's really a pleasure. This was a great conversation. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's always fun. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So I'm gonna just wrap up here. I'm gonna let you go. You take care. All right. We'll see you.
See ya.
Tim Conaway and our favorite caller, calling in. It's great. Yeah. So as usual, I had a whole part 2 planned here, but what the heck? It's like we do this off the seat of our butt. That's what we do, and it always makes for good conversation, and that's what I hope we're getting done here. So anyway, I want to thank you folks for watching. Let me go by. I'm going to run by you again what we got going on here. So we're taking Monday off. Tuesday we got Jonathan Lockwood. Once again, I'm going to remind you too. We're on Monday. We're going to start running reruns. So we're going to have a show up 4 nights a week, no matter what's going on. So Monday night, for the first time ever, we're going to run a rerun. It's going to be Ryan McDermott about his book Downriver, about being in the Iraqi War. I thought that would be appropriate for Memorial Day. Tuesday, we got Jonathan Lockwood, military historian. We booked him the day after Memorial Day for that reason too. So he's going to talk about some of the world situation. Wednesday, I'm taking off again. Got some personal business I got to take care of. We're going to run another rerun. Don't know what that'll be, but it'll be there. On Thursday, Larry Newman, Bigfoot investigator. It's interesting. Tim was talking early in the conversation there about Savannah, Georgia, about how there's a whole bunch. They're building a whole bunch of what out of the South you would call housing developments. He said they call them plantations down there, and I think that's actually a legal term they have down there, if I'm right, of a plantation. But at any rate, and the thing, and Larry, when he was on last month, we were talking about the fact that people are in new housing developments all across the country, because a lot of them are built either what was or right next to a forest, because people are clearing land to build houses. He said they see Bigfoot all the time. He said so many people are seeing Bigfoot. And I've heard this too. I've read this also. So many people are seeing Bigfoot, they don't bother to report him anymore. They just like, Bigfoot's in your backyard. God bless you, you know. So they got to figure out what these things are. I mean, they do. I don't understand why people have a problem with the fact that they're an undiscovered primate. I don't. I just don't know. Well, how come it hasn't been discovered? Well, it hasn't yet. And I get back to this thing about the giant squid. For 2,000 freaking years, sailors were saying they saw these giant squids, and nobody caught one until 2006. 2,000 freaking years before someone finally caught one. So yeah, I'm assuming that's I have people on the show, Stan Gordon, who said there's a paranormal aspect to Bigfoot, and I'm not necessarily discounting that, but these things are very definitely real. And I just think that, yeah, at the very least, they're just like, yeah, they're an undiscovered gorilla. That's what it is. So how did I get from that to, Larry's coming on. That's right. On Monday, June 2nd, AJ Rice is going to be here. He is the GOAT of publicity for the conservative movement in the United States. I will read you at the start of that interview a partial list of his clients, and your jaw will drop. Basically, everybody you've ever heard of in conservative Republican political circles in America, he represents. Either has currently does, or has in the past. It's mind-boggling. And pretty much any person you can name has been a client of his. So he has 2 books out. One is fairly recent, and it's called, I got it here on my desk, it's called The White Privilege Album, and they're quite funny. He's a very, very entertaining guy. So he's coming on, and we'll talk. That's gonna be really interesting too. His previous book was called The Woking Dead, and I've read both of them. Yeah, he's a pretty entertaining writer. The Woking Dead is basically just a series of essays that he's written. He writes a column in about 35 different newspapers, I think it is, or publications, and it was pretty much just a collection of his columns and essays. But it's still pretty cool. And so I'm looking forward to having him on too. That's on Monday, June 2nd. And so we've got a big month coming up. And we do. Yeah, people actually want to be on the show. Who the hell would have ever thought that? So anyway, well, thank you, folks. I hope you have a good weekend. Okay. Yeah, so it starts tomorrow. You got basically like 4 good days to do some grilling, and the weather here in Minneapolis is warming up finally again. So we're looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to I'm not going to be taking a few days off. I'm working. This is becoming a big production. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Good night, Esperanza. Good night, Uncle Donnie, wherever you are. And good night to you, wherever you may be. I appreciate it very much. You guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you on next Tuesday. Take care, everybody.